Good afternoon.
And good evening here from India. Good afternoon to you, Avneet.
What's up, D? I'm super excited. I think this is a series we usually do with one phenomenal female founder. Today we have a dual, two amazing female founders and talking about our climate trailblazers and everything that's happening in the space of sustainability at FounderHER Spotlight. What's up with you? Tell me whenever we're ready, we'll bring them in.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of plugging in. Last week was World Environment Day, and I know that a lot of businesses and people do a lot to contribute towards sustainability, and that is the need of the hour. In our own way at Encubay, Avneet and I want to make sure that we at least highlight the tremendous work of amazing women who are building in sustainability. So, women who build in sustainability. And today at the FounderHER series, we bring to you two such fantastic entrepreneurs. Both are based out of India and Dubai, who are helping us consume a little bit more efficiently, sustainably, right? So let's bring on Krutika from Fashboard and Ashri from Ziniosa.
Hey
Hi,
guys.
ladies.
Hi. How are you?
Hi Diksha, hi Avneet. Hi Krutika.
Hi, Ashri.
I hope everyone's doing well. And I was just telling people who've logged in that, in our own attempt to contribute to sustainability, we at Encubay want to highlight amazing founders like yourself, right, who are building in sustainability because I think today, while the word is big and we all want to contribute, we're so jumbled in our lives that, we're not really doing as much as we should towards the planet, right? But what's interesting is that both of you have two very exciting and interesting ventures that are helping us, consume a lot more sustainably, right? So, I want to first begin by asking both of you, and Ashri, I'll start with you. What's that, one thing, or what was your personal story that led you to create Ziniosa? And also for everyone who's listening, please tell them what Ziniosa is quickly. And then I'd love to hear your personal story. And then, Kritika, over to you post that.
Great. Thank you so much, Diksha. Lovely, lovely to always talk to you and Avneet and be on Encubay's platform. Just to let you guys know a little bit about Ziniosa. Ziniosa is India's leading pre-loved luxury service. We've also recently partnered up with Tata Click Luxury, meaning Tata has also joined hands with Ziniosa to sort of sell pre-loved products on their platform, which just goes to show that sustainable fashion has become so big and there is nothing wrong. There is no taboo in using or wearing or owning a pre-loved item. That being said, me and my co-founder started Zinnios way back when we were in the US, just students right out of a master's program, working and trying to figure out at least for me, I was just trying to figure out how to not consume or buy as much each time I go on a vacation. I know every time we go on a vacation, the first thing we start doing is looking at Instagram and Pinterest and start figuring out what would be the perfect look. And as someone who was, who just had her first job in the US, I found it quite challenging to always get new stuff each time I'm traveling, which is when I discovered rental services or subscription based rental services in the US. And I personally used one of them when I was when I was traveling for a trip, because to be honest, at that point of time, I did not feel like spending so much just on fashion each time I'm traveling. And that's how the idea sort of trickled in our minds that, hey, this can be done in India, which is how Zeniosa started way back as a rental subscription service. Of course, now we're very, very different. We've um, sort of spread our wings into different angles of sustainability. But essentially, what Zeniosa does is it allows you to buy and sell pre-loved luxury. And selling your pre-loved luxury is really very important because we just hoard these products in our closets. We don't use them enough. We use it once for the sake of social media sometimes, and then never go back to it, right? There are so many of these bags, and I know friends and people around me who want their bag to make a debut on social media, and then they never use it again because they've felt that they've shown it to the world, and now what do we do, right? And it's also for people like these that there is an option now to sell it, a very credible option where you can sell it, let other people use it, and this goes for other people who are the buyers, where they can get this at such a cost effective manner. They don't have to every time buy new products. You're just sort of adding on to the circular economy, which I think is great and really, really required, looking at how badly the climate is also changing, especially this year, right? I mean, something that no one ever anticipated. So I think even though it's just in the field of fashion, I think it's very important to be sustainable.
Amazing. Ashri, I really liked what you said, right? That we want to keep buying new things, but what do we do with everything that,
Yeah,
we've already got, and now it's like you said, not new enough for social media. So I think that trend of, just sort of buying, being able to buy, to sell, to buy, just that cyclicity is tremendous, So thank you for
yeah.
so much for sort of, putting that out. Krutika, I would love to hear a little bit more about, Fashboard. And also, I know that you started this because of a personal experience. So please give us a little
Mhm.
insight into that.
Thanks, Deeksha. Um, so the thing is, I love shopping. I love clothes. I love bags. I love shoes. And what happened during the pandemic was I had nothing to do. So I would scroll endlessly on all of the websites and just constantly buy, mostly fast fashion, now I'm ashamed to say, which after a few wears didn't look the same. I mean, after a few wears, I didn't want to wear them. And then for a couple of years, I started thinking about how I was buying things, and it didn't sit well with me. I felt deeply uncomfortable with my overflowing wardrobe of basically rubbish that I wouldn't wear more than once or twice, right? So what I started doing instead was shifting my gaze towards slightly higher end brands, but only during sales. So now what I was doing is scrolling endlessly on 10 different apps through the year to find things that I really loved, but to try and get them at a price that I was comfortable with. And then one day, I just bought something and I was just really frustrated with the process. And I was just like, I want all of this information on one platform. I want to be able to see multiple retailers on one platform, show me brands from across the world that I don't have access to unless I know of them. And I want to be able to track prices for the items that I love and covet, right? And I was just like, wait, actually, that's a pretty good idea, which is why I started doing a little bit of research, and then started conceiving of Fashboard. 2 years later, we're now ready with our product. So Fashboard, it is a platform. It is a multi-retailer luxury brand aggregator. And what it does is it collates retailers from across the world on one platform where a user can browse, they can curate mood boards, and then also monitor and track prices. So during sales, during special events like Ramadan and Eid, and those sorts of sales, so that they can reduce their dependency on fast fashion while still getting really good brands, really good clothes, and sort of push oneself to be mindful of what they're buying and how they're buying. So the goal with Fashboard in terms of sustainability is to push a slow purchasing habit where we don't need to buy every week. We don't need to buy something every for every event. Instead, we buy something that is of good quality, that we genuinely love, because the price points tend to be a little higher, that we know we're going to wear for much longer than 2 months, 3 months, a cycle. And that's what Fashboard is. And I'm really happy to say that we're kind of done building the platform now. We're going to release soon as well. We've got some great retailers on there, some incredible brands at some great deals. So I'm really, really excited for Fashboard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Kritika and Ashri, when I hear you both talking, you reminded me of two experiences I personally had. Firstly, Ashri, the first, almost a decade of my career was in the media business, right? And you could never repeat an outfit. So, I mean, firstly, you'd hold back from posting it
Yeah.
on social media. And once you have, there's no way you could repeat that outfit. And when I was relocating countries, I literally ran an exhibition in my house because I had 5 cupboards filled with like glam clothes that I had to sell at like peanut prices. And
Yeah.
it didn't kind of recover anything, but I was just amazed with the amount of stuff I had to just give away or throw
Mm-hmm.
or just
Right,
sell at an extremely unreasonable price.
right.
Yeah. So, and at that time, I mean, this was almost 8 9 years ago. We weren't even talking sustainability. I think today, thanks to whatever is out there in terms of the ecosystem or marketing, at least people are becoming more and more conscious. More in the
Yeah.
West and now gradually even in India, where people like
Right.
us are having these conversations, right? So, and
Agree.
Krutika, you reminded me of an experience where I was looking to buy a luxury bag for myself. And I remember running a bill of almost 16,000 rupees, calling my friends to track because I believe Gucci is cheapest in India. And at that time, and I didn't know that, right? So, and I was talking to like friends and my sister who's in Canada and like call these guys to be like, okay, it's Halloween. Why don't you go and check this there? And all of that
Yeah.
money that was wasted. So, along
Yeah.
with one aspect of sustainability, I believe is, I mean, what commonly people perceive it to be is just being environment friendly. But coming from
Mm.
both of you, I would love for you to also really help us get a macro view of everything that falls in the realm of
Yeah.
sustainability. Is it just environment that we're talking about? Or, I mean, you spoke about buying smartly, so even saving money, saving resources, is that a
Mhm.
part of it? If you could draw a parallel between ESG and sustainability, what people should know.
Ashri, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. So, no, Apneet, actually, that's a really good point because there is so much talk about sustainability, right? And people, for some reason, we always end up having conversations around e-commerce brands. But there are so many other ways where we can be sustainable in our workplaces, for example, right? I mean, just eliminating plastic cups, eliminating plastic water bottles. Now, on the outside, you could be a sustainable company, but are you following the same
Mm.
practices at your workplace? That is also something very important. Like even for us, we are trying so hard because these are really highly expensive products, and if we don't, at the end of the day, I mean, we're trying to be as sustainable as we possibly can, but at the end of the day, when we give it to our shipping company, they eventually do put it in a plastic mylar bag so that it doesn't get ruined in transit, which is a very fair problem even for us, and we've not been able to find an alternate. So it's very difficult for any brand to do it 100% in a sustainable manner, but small steps can be taken. And I think when we talk about, that it's so good that we are having this conversation in India, I feel India is getting the most impacted because I just
Mm.
realized I was just in the US a few weeks ago and I realized it's so green. The AQI there is like 18
Yeah.
and 20,
Mhm.
right? And
Mm.
these practices are really have been very well accepted there, but I think they need to be more accepted in our country because we have bigger problems to solve, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think we should now look at the West and say they're buying pre-love, so we should too. I think we need to be the front runners to sort of
Yeah.
help the bigger problem that's surrounding our country at the moment. So I don't think it's
Yeah.
just from a consumption standpoint, it's also your internal practices. Like you may run a sustainable company, but are you like doing the
Mm,
same things at home? Uh, are you
yeah,
following the same protocols and procedures? I think that's extremely important. Over to you, Kritika, if you want to add to that.
yeah. Thank you, Ashri. I really do identify with what you're saying, because I think at an individual level, we should be doing as much as we possibly can, and I think that as entrepreneurs, that should trickle down into the organizations we're building. Um, so having said that, I've also, because I'm mostly focused in the fashion space, I've identified, I think, four major areas in which sustainability should be spoken about. One is, of course, overconsumption. The second is fast fashion. The third, and I believe that it's incredibly important to think about, is human impact, human and social impact. And the fourth is accessibility. So, in terms of overconsumption, of course, we've spoken about this. We're constantly buying, whether it's clothes or just plastic bottles, shampoos, da, 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 we're always buying things. And I think that it depends on every single individual to introspect a little bit, make that distinction between what you want versus what you need versus what is good to have, right? And I think that's a good way to go about your daily consumption. Second is fast fashion, which, of course, as we know, is uh, some call them climate terrorists. I won't go that far just yet. I will, but anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So apparently, fast fashion is the cause of 10% of global carbon emissions, right? And it's not only in terms of the kinds of products it's building, it's also about the supply chains. It's also about how they're getting rid of the excess clothing. So you find vast swathes of coastline in, say, Western Africa, that where fast fashion companies dump their extra clothes that are not sold. um, and which brings me then to my third point, which is the human impact of it. So we also need to think about those communities that are impacted by the horrible effects of things like fast fashion, right? You might recall the Rana Plaza incident a few years ago in Bangladesh, where garment workers who were working in horrific conditions in buildings died in the hundreds because of those conditions. They're often underpaid, they're often overworked, and oftentimes the brunt of fast fashion organizations is borne by communities in the global south. So in India, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, so on and so forth. And I think that is, for me, one of the most important driving factors driving me away from fast fashion, is because you can see the impact that it's having not only on the planet but on the people that live in it, right? On people that perhaps don't have any other option but to work for these sorts of organizations, which I think is quite tragic. And then in terms of accessibility, I also think that what's driving this unabetted growth of fast fashion is the price point. It is so cheap now to buy clothes. It's historically cheap. It never did used to be this cheap. People either made their stuff or bought it for higher prices because there was such a thing as longevity, right? But the clothes were kind of buying now don't last very long, a year, 2 years at most. And I think we need to have a serious conversation about accessibility in terms of finding better brands, better fashion for prices that one is comfortable with. It may be higher than, say, your Sheins and Forever 21s and so on, but how much are you going to use it? And therefore, what is the cost per use of those items, right? So these are sort of the ways in which I think about fashion when it comes to sustainability.
Kritika, thanks. And just, it's interesting that you touched upon the pricing point, right? And here's where I'd like to hear from you both because, you both are Indians and you have a context of that market. And you both have also traveled and interacted with a lot of other nationalities and now live in respective countries. In a price sensitive market like India, if we look at our grandmothers, they would always uh, upcycle the different things that we had,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it
Yeah.
was your ice cream sticks or, they do
Mm-hmm.
crafts with it or they do these things. All of that has just been lost as something that we look to do anymore, right? I'm guilty of this. Uh, what are your thoughts on upcycling, and in a price sensitive market like India, how do we make sustainability easy to adopt?
Um,
Do you want? Yeah.
okay, I'll just go ahead. I think, what's very interesting about India is that it's a highly price sensitive market, yes, but all the fast fashion or highly consumable fashion items have been introduced to us by the West or other parts of the world, say China, right? Traditionally, even right now, if you look at a lot of our homegrown designers, you will see that their stuff is such high quality. I mean, I'm just talking about like my own experience. When I got married, I bought a bunch of saris, right? And even though, or suits or lehengas, and even though the price point was higher, I think they last so much longer. I think one of the things that we need to look and see around us is India as a market does things. I mean, when we mass produce for other companies that are based out of India, I think we do it at a really cheap price. But traditionally, India is a market, even if you look at our grandmothers, right, they bought one sari and they wore it for really long because the material of that sari also sort of lasted very long, right? So I think that's also very important for us to see right now. It's just a little unfortunate that a lot of sustainable brands that I speak to, especially in fashion, their price points are a little higher because the amount of effort that it takes, as Kritika mentioned, right, the human element behind it. There are like people who are actually working on a sari or a piece of, or like an ikat, or if they're weaving something, they're actually taking a lot of time to do that, and that's why it's a bit more expensive as opposed to your fast fashion companies, right? And I have personally started taking that effort that I'm buying more from Indian brands uh, in an effort to sort of pay a little bit more, yes, but it lasts much longer. I wear it more often because it doesn't go bad after one wash, right? I bought clothes from Zara where I wore it once, I put it in the washer, and then it was done. I literally couldn't wear it. Even though I liked it, I couldn't wear it, as opposed to some Indian designers where the price point was a little higher, but I'm wearing it so much more. So cost per wear, as Kritika pointed out, is extremely important in the Indian market. Yes, is price sensitive, but I think we're also people who really know how to value our belongings, right? We take good care of it. We really even now have people who come in and wash and iron clothes for us, which is not possible in other parts of the world. That's why their clothes are also made. There's a lot of polyester involved so that you don't have to iron it, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons. But I think in India we do have the benefit or the luxury of having people take care of our products as well. And I think it's high time we start understanding why things are cheaper versus why they're a little bit more expensive. And if we have that kind of an awareness, I think it would really help us consume more mindfully.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also, I think it's completely undeniable that India is a price sensitive market. But I think what is interesting is to sort of define whom we're speaking about. So, for instance, when you look at the consumers of fast fashion in India, they're mostly urban centric, first or second tier kind of metropolitan users who perhaps in the last 15 years have been the first generation to purchase things like Zara and so on and so forth. Now, if you can convince those people who do have the disposable income to buy 5 things a month to shift how they shop, I think that could make a massive difference because the vast majority of the Indian population can't even afford Forever 21. So we need to also think about whom we're talking about, right? And I think there's a lot to learn from that vast majority about things like maintenance, longevity, reusability, upcycling, like you mentioned. I think we've sort of forgotten that in this rush to be the first best, on social media and so on and so forth. So I think it's important to decide who is price sensitive, how much are they sensitive? Is it just merely about um, buying the most clothes at the cheapest price, or can they afford to perhaps stretch a little bit further? what age they are. So, for instance, college students maybe don't have as much money as someone, say, in their late 20s, and maybe they're a little bit more reliant on fast fashion brands, especially because they want to be trendy and cool, and that's a good thing. But then people, say, who started working, who can make a little bit more money, who think about where they're spending their money, I think um, do carry the onus of trying to shift shopping habits even in India, which is so price sensitive.
Just a tip from my side, and with what you guys do, you're directly in that space. I think most clothes come with a care label, right? And I don't think people look at it and people don't know how to read it. And there's a massive disconnect in terms of how do you maintain those clothes. And then people just throw it into the washer, then it doesn't look good. Then, okay, I need to buy something new. So I think there's also an education problem there. And with whatever you are respectively building, I don't know if there's room for that in your content, in your campaigns, but I think it's a very simple thing that can be done, because the minute I started learning, because I mean, I random, but I'd done a course in image consulting about 10 years ago. And the minute they taught us how to read these care labels, it really shifted the way I maintained stuff that I owned. So, yeah, just a thought there. Dee, I pass it over to you. Any questions for our speakers?
No, thank you so much. Some of these insights have been so they've got me thinking. I'm guilty of that consumer who will buy fast fashion. I'm guilty of that consumer who doesn't like to repeat clothes, right? But I think that's part of the problem, that accepting we are the problem and then moving forward, right? One of the things that came to my mind while I was listening to all three of you was, Avneet made a statement that yes, today I think there has been a lot more consciousness about the environment and us being sustainable. But I also feel a lot of consumerism has been, is driving upwards because of social media, right? Because of like pressures to keep up and stuff like that, right? So I really want to hear from maybe all of you, right? Like, what can brands who have the power, right, to govern people's minds do, and use social media a little bit more carefully to ensure that it's not just letting people go into that spiral of buying, spending, so on and so forth, right? Or even as a user, right? Like, I'm constantly, getting ads on Instagram. I like one product and then I'll have 10 of those sent in, right? So what can I do as a user, to actually stop myself, or, like, just not get into that whole gamut of viral purchasing and stuff like that? So what are some of your thoughts?
Um, I think, Diksha, I'll share a very interesting, candid sort of a insight here. Is we started as a brand that wanted to promote sustainability, right? When we started our Instagram, started making reels, our reels just don't get traction the moment we speak about sustainability. Like, we get 10 likes. Okay. And as opposed to when we start showing about consumption and luxury brands, and this is how it can look, and this is how you can be styled, 10,000 likes. So, I mean, even as a fashion brand or even as an e-commerce brand, it's very difficult for us. And I understand, because I've been a part of, and I remember I was a part of a UN program which promotes sustainable entrepreneurs, and I was a mentor there. And each entrepreneur I spoke to said the same thing, that, our content is not getting traction. It's because no one wants to. I mean, we all want to talk about it, but when it comes to our own self, I think we get so carried away with the content, and we're like, yeah, no, 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 let me just buy it. There's that urge to sort of buy that product that we see on our screens. Like, you see, I mean, we've really, now then what we do internally is we come up with creative ways to show our sustainable content, because otherwise we just don't get traction. And as a brand, right, it gets very difficult for us to sustain if we're not getting that level of engagement. So I think one thing would be very important as consumers, to sort of understand the repercussions of your buying habits. Um, we would love to talk about it, but you see any brand, any reel that they do, the moment they talk about sustainability, the traction, the engagement really drops. And I think that's really concerning. because we need to talk about it. I mean, the more you look at our environment, right, you feel that it is high time that we talk about it, not just in terms of our fashion, but in terms of our households, how we are raising our kids, what kind of food we are eating, where our food is originally coming from. I mean, if you just see the whole Everest MDH thing, right, that also goes to show that nothing that we're consuming, I mean, I'm not sure how many more labels we can possibly read at this point, right? So I think step one would be to just ourselves be really, really aware, give these brands a chance. A lot of homegrown Indian brands are doing some wonderful work with sustainability. Um, I can name so many of them, and a lot of them actually, unfortunately, are shutting down as well because they're not getting traction, right? It's because we've just been compelled to buy from stores and Instagram pages that look so pretty. There's so much pressure on brands. There's some beautiful entrepreneurs who's. I just recently, 2 days back on LinkedIn, saw that someone I was talking to in that UN panel has shut her brand because even though she abides by those sustainable practices, people are not buying. So I think now it's on us to sort of be more aware. Even though brands try to educate us, I think we just want to like doom scroll and like look at the best option and the best price and consume it. I think we need to be very, very mindful now in order to let these brands sort of grow, help you be more sustainable, and just not just in terms of fashion, your masalas, where are they coming from, the kind of like storage boxes you're using at home. If you can move to brands that have that don't use plastic, that probably if you go back to your mother's and grandmother's way of like cooking food in cast iron as opposed to Teflon, say for example, I think a lot of these things we have to start learning ourselves, and then that's how these brands will start growing automatically.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I also, um, I'm ashamed to say that it is a daily struggle for me as well, not only in terms of fashion, just in general, to be very, very cautious about what I'm doing online. Why I want a certain thing. Is it just because somebody looked really good in it, or will it add value to my wardrobe and so on? I think what a really helpful little game I played was to go back to my Zara profile, go to my orders, and count how many things I've bought and add up the prices of all of those things, especially in Dubai, where Zara is also not very cheap, right? So, and once I did that, it was appalling. I could have probably bought a Gucci bag with that amount, you know. But I also think that guilt isn't necessarily a very helpful sentiment in this regard, because ultimately we're all living in a world where this is just the fact that there are fast fashion brands. You're going to see these things online, so on and so forth. I think it's about how we use it. So for instance, I may still buy a t-shirt from H&M, but like Avneet said, I'm now looking at the care label. I'm just a little bit more attuned to exactly what I want, and a lot of those things I think also just come with age. So I feel like feeling bad about it constantly is not very helpful. Um, but I think in terms of your personal consumption, just stop for a moment, think about it, see how it fits into your life. I think that's a good way to go about things. When it comes to brands, I think I don't know what it is. I completely agree with Ashri, where anytime someone starts talking about sustainability or the impacts of fast fashion on the planet, your eyes just glaze over. A lot of the content that a lot of people put out in terms of education tends to, I mean, I'm sorry to say, it's just boring, right? So we need to make sustainability really cool. And I feel like you just have to sort of Trojan horse sustainability in the horse of just coolness, which I think I know a lot of brands that are doing that. A couple of Indian ones come to mind as well. They show you their whole process. They're telling you the ethos behind the brand. It has a personality. It's not just a large faceless corporation that is taking your money all the way to the bank and a yacht somewhere probably. So I think that you just have to make sustainability and the conversation around it cool rather than condescending. I think that would help brands.
Krutika, something cool I saw this week. uh, I'm going to refrain from naming the brand, but I am essentially subscribed to their portal in Dubai, and they essentially send you clothes at home, right? So you can uh, drop your sizes with them, and whatever you need, they give you a certain period in which you can wear their clothes, and then send it back. So you're not always purchasing as well. And for me, I attend so many events that just buying earlier, I would like buy one outfit, wear it to one event, and then it would sit in my cupboard forever. But what these guys started doing was okay, I mean, it had a business impact and a sustainability impact where a certain piece of garment, if you were to purchase it or, have that included in your box, they showed you 21 ways that you could wear it. I think that's what,
Yeah.
right? Where a lot of
Yeah.
uh, when we say education again, right, where guilt is not a helpful emotion, neither is preaching as a brand,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Because
mm.
people think they're too small, a bug in the entire universe to make a direct
Exactly.
impact, and not everyone has the same consciousness, which is a very high value for them, right? Some of them might look at price as a higher value, someone might look at something else. So all of us are structured with a different set of values. But the minute what they did was take that gap in communication, sorry, in information, that a person did not know how they could wear that outfit in 21 different ways, and they'd send this to you on WhatsApp, right? So
Nice. Mm,
now that encouraged me, who was only renting that garment from them. Firstly, I purchased that garment, and
yeah.
secondly, now I have a reference board of 21 different ways that I can wear it, right? So I think it is a equal job on the part of the consumer as well as the creator, or a middle platform like yourselves, in order to enable that, right, and enable that creatively. Because guilt is not a helpful emotion, neither is saying, okay, it doesn't work in my communication, my reach and followers go down, so I'm not going to talk about it. Because if you guys don't, then who will, right? Zara
Mm,
surely is going to come and talk about it, but it's going to be new age founders like you who are influencers in your own capacities that can really drive that narrative in this generation. So just my thoughts. Sorry, we're a little overboard with time, but I think let's put a lid on this conversation with some quick tips that we think are all of us can easily apply in our daily lives. And yeah, so I think let's hear from D. What are some things that you do or now after this conversation that you think you can do to be more sustainable?
I liked what Krutika said. I'm going to go to my Zara app and literally do the
yeah.
totals. And really ask myself, I think this can go in another stock. It doesn't need to be in my cupboard. I'll just invest that money. And I think I mean, I have been meaning to write to Ashri and send some of my bags so that I can resell them to her, because it's just getting crowded. So I think for me, the takeaway is you don't have to always make very monumental changes. I think there are cool entrepreneurs like Ashri and Kritika out there. And, I think if you can just take some pain to understand how you can use products, services, platforms like theirs. They've made sure that, they're making it sustainable. I think for us, it's just, about not going to that Zara or not doing that impulsive buy. So that's a quick tip for me. And I think, like both of them, I mean, I do want to push this out. There are some amazing women building in sustainability across. And I've seen this, that when women build in sustainability, especially, anything in consumer, they really, really understand what to do, right, in terms of design, fashion sense, whatever, right? So I think, yes, I think it's our ethos as consumers to just be a little bit more alert and search for them, right? So those are my quick tips. But yeah, Ashri, Kritika, Avneet, we'll love to hear from you.
Ashri?
I would just say one thing, guys, buy pre-loved. And not just handbags, and that would be my tip.
Yeah.
Every time people say, oh, I want to buy pre-loved, they look at handbags as a category that they can buy. But trust me, as a consumer, I buy pre-loved shoes a lot. because it makes so much sense. You buy a, say, a Valentino shoe and you're so scared to wear it outside because it may chip, the heel may break. You buy pre-loved. When we talk about pre-love, we're only talking about like certain categories, but I would really insist that people, if you're like a Sabyasachi piece, if you like a footwear, if you like a belt, look at the pre-love alternatives. There is Ziniosa. There is so many more like Ziniosa in India, which is absolutely amazing. Go to their websites. Maybe the piece that you are really looking for, right, may be just on that platform. You not just save money, you save the planet as well. So buy pre-loved, and pre-loved is more than handbags, right? So there is shoes, there are belts, there's so many things that you can purchase.
Krutika.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm going to second Ashri's advice. Vintage, pre-love, thrifting. We're hearing all of these words around us, and I think it's time to put our money where our mouth is and actually go looking. I think you'll find some incredible stuff on these platforms. I think maintenance and longevity is another one. I think we really need to take care of our clothes and then in turn take care of the planet. Um, I recently did a clothes swap with some of my friends where things that didn't fit me anymore or I just didn't like. We exchanged clothes, had a couple of drinks, and had a gala old time. And it's just a fun way to sort of refresh your wardrobe, but also not throw away clothes. Um, by smaller independent brands, I think giving our hard earned money to people like us who are also building incredible brands with actual like values behind their products, I think is integral to this process. And lastly, of course, um, shop on Fashport, where you may buy a few less products, but you'll buy better products and they will last
Kritika,
much
on
much
that,
longer than.
congratulations. I know we are going live soon. So when can
Yes,
people
thank
log
you.
on to the app?
Well, TBD, but in the next couple of weeks, for sure. For
I
sure.
love
Look out for that announcement.
All right, guys, thank you so much. It's been phenomenal. I didn't realize where the last 43 minutes just flew. At my end, I think what I want to go ahead and do is find 5 women who I can swap clothes with. D, you don't come on that list. And probably your clothes are going to fit an arm of mine, but I need to find that, I think, girl gang that I can do clothes swapping with. I think that's a creative idea that I'd like to implement. Thank you once again and continue to do the great work that you're doing. We at Encubay champion women founders like you, and it genuinely fills our heart with joy when we see you climb, for each step of the ladder. We wish you all the success. And yes, see you soon.
Thank
Thank you
you very,
guys,
very
lovely
much
chatting
for
with all of
having
you.
us.
Bye.
Always a pleasure. Bye,
Same
guys.
See you
here.
guys.
Bye everyone. Bye.
Bye.